China, the Arab world has emerged as a major trading partner. That's now on full display at the 4th China-Arab States Expo. But what has made this relationship a priority for both sides? And what steps are being taken to broaden cooperation between them? Welcome to The Point, an opinion show coming to you live from Beijing. I'm Jeff Moody, sitting in for Lu Xing. Now, China and the Arab world have entered an historic new era, according to some observers. To that end, the 4th China-Arab States Expo has opened in China with a fresh focus on how to boost trade in agriculture. As China has become the Arab world's second largest trading partner, why do both sides now see each other as vital allies? What challenges do they face to deepen this relationship? And beyond doing business, should China get involved with the politics of the region? Well, joining our discussion in Beijing is Kassem Tofailli, the Deputy Secretary-General of the China-Arab States Expo and also President of the Arab-Chinese Cooperation and Development Association. We've also got Li Guofu, a Senior Research Fellow at the China Institute of International Studies, and from Israel, Meir Javedanfar, a Middle East analyst. Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed. I'm going to bring this first question to Kassem, if I may. China is now said to be the region's second largest trading partner. The figures are quite astounding, aren't they? They've established strategic partnerships with 12 Arab states. Why do you think this relationship is so important for China?
Well, I think in the last years, as you mentioned, the relationship took several turns. Especially after the One Belt, One Road initiative. As we know, the Arab world is about a third of the countries of the Belt and Road initiative. And there are vital interests between both sides. This is starting from cooperation on the oil and gas, and low carbon energy, and it flew through with different aspects of cooperation, as you mentioned, about the agriculture, about now a different turn, a new era of trying to industrialize the Arab countries, or some certain Arab countries, which led to a strategic partnerships announced, as you said, with about 12 countries in that sense.
Li Guofu, China hasn't always taken so much interest in the Middle East, has it?
Yes.
What do you think this new interest now is? Because going back a few years, it wasn't so important for the Chinese to be so engaged in the Middle East, was it?
No, I think, China has always, attached great importance to our relationship with the Arab world. And not being because, this is a large part of the world. We always considered our relationship with the Arab world as we may call it, the non cooperation, is kind of cooperation and among the developing countries. And also I think the Middle East is very important, and for China, not only because of the energy issue, and China will have imported a large amount of the oil from this area, and also I think the area and China, we can have a lot of similarities in terms of the stage of our development, and the opportunities and the challenges we face, and how the both sides can work together. So from the economically, I think China and the Arab world are very competitively. If we may say that what we needed, we can get from the Arab world, and what Arab wanted, they can also get from the China. So both sides, get a lot of benefits from this kind of cooperations, and especially as you say that, in the past, and we attach great importance to our relationships, and also we may hope that in the new era that with the efforts of both sides, we would help to bring up relation into a new stage, a new higher level.
Okay, Meir Javedanfar, let's bring you in here. The figures are astounding, aren't they? In 2018, bilateral trade volume between China and the Arab countries topped something like $244 billion. You're in Israel at the moment. Do you see the Chinese influence on a day-to-day basis? Do you see China building up its influence in the region?
Of course, it's not just a question of Israel. The Middle East is no longer seen just as a source of oil for China. The Middle East is now also seen as a source of investment where China can reap great benefits for its investments. Let's just look at the country of United Arab Emirates. In 2006, there were 30,000 Chinese citizens. Today, there are 200,000 Chinese citizens in the United Arab Emirates. Majority of them are business people. China is taking part in infrastructure projects here and in other countries. The metro system in Tel Aviv is being built by the same Chinese company that built the Tehran metro. We see China taking part in transportation, building ports in Israel, providing electric buses, selling electric buses to Israel and Egypt. Look, China is being seen as a competitor to the United States, as a country which is willing to invest in this region. And what this region badly needs is investment, especially in its infrastructure. And I think also the question of the countries of this region looking for another country, another superpower, to compete against the United States, it's important to them because they want to balance their relationship. Let's be honest, Russia does not have the economic muscle to invest in infrastructure, to invest in businesses in this region. Russia's got too many problems, and it also is under sanctions. So this is where China comes in, and of course, apart from the hydrocarbon interests of China in this region, we see that the Chinese companies are entering this region. And also, it's another important point. I don't know if the Chinese government realizes this. China is no longer seen as just an factory for producing products, cheap products. China is now seen actually as an emerging technological powerhouse. You'll be astounded if you visit Tel Aviv, and this is a country where we pride ourselves on our technology, of how many people use Xiaomi telephones. If a telephone goes off, on many occasions you hear the Xiaomi ringtone, and it's not just Israel. So the emerging technological power of China, China buying companies such as Lenovo, other companies such as Huawei, this also increases the attractiveness of China to Middle Eastern countries, and of course attractiveness of Middle Eastern countries as a potential client for such high-tech Chinese products.
But Meir, everything comes at a price. There's no such thing as a free lunch. And one of the things that China has always done, particularly in the Belt and Road Initiative, it's always said, we're not going to get involved in your country's politics. We're going to provide A, B, C, D, and E, and we're not going to get involved with what's going on in your region. But there seems to be a slight shift, correct me if I'm wrong, because last year at the China-Arab States Cooperation Forum in Beijing, President Xi told the audience, we must strive to uphold peace and stability in the Middle East, safeguard fairness and justice, and promote common development. Do you think that China is now going to get more involved in the politics of the Middle East in the way that America does?
Well, I don't think that's not going to happen for the time being, simply because the Americans are not going to let them. Not going to let China. You have a very strong competitor in the form of United States, and the current China-U.S. trade dispute makes it even more difficult to do that. And also, it will take a longer. China is compared to the United States, is a relatively new player in this region. It will take much longer for China to build alliances in this region before it becomes an active player in the politics. And also, last but not least, you want to think twice about becoming involved in Middle Eastern politics This is a very, very complicated region, and I'm being very charitable here, using the word complicated in terms of our politics. Sometimes, you need the algebra mathematician to try to work out how politics in this region works in different countries, in each country, never mind between our difficult relations between the neighbors that we have in this region. So that's also another issue. So I think even if China wants to get involved, and that comes with a great warning stick that it should think twice before it does, it will take far longer because of the competition that the United States presents in terms of allowing China to get a foothold in this region. And of course, it will take a much longer time before China can build the necessary alliances.
Kassem, do you agree with that? China should think twice before it gets involved in Middle Eastern politics?
Well, my personal view here is I think it's inevitable for China to get involved in politics in the region. And I would say here, because China has, as President Xi Jinping in the last forum last year, the China-Arab Cooperation Forum, highlighted, even though he spoke about the peace and peaceful resolution for the problems that we have, but he also highlighted the stand that China has been following for years, not a new thing. China is with the Palestinian cause, and China has its principle in the region. They are with the Arab rights and the Palestinian people rights, and this is the angle I think China is getting into.
So basically you're saying that there's no way that China can stay out of it, that China supports the Palestinians, the United States supports the Israelis, and therefore you're almost talking about creating a proxy war. What do you say to that, Meir Javedanfar?
I don't think, to be honest with you, as much as I believe in a two-state solution, with due respect to my colleague in the studio, I don't think China is taking sides. China is doing very, very large volumes of trade with the State of Israel. It's one of the major investors in the State of Israel. China takes no interest in the boycott, divestment sanctions, which some Palestinian organizations are carrying out. At the same time, I'm not saying they're ignoring the plight of the people of Palestine. No, they're not doing that. But it seems that China is staying well away from this, because once you become involved in this issue and you take sides, you are going to lose, as Jeff said, there's no such thing as free lunch. You're going to have to pay a cost. And I think the best advice that I could give my Chinese friends is to become a platform for bilateral talks, for China to host Palestinians and Israelis or different groups in this region. That is, unfortunately, that is not the only dispute in this region. To become a platform for talks. But if you want to become involved, once you step your foot in, before you know it, you may become sucked in. Just ask the Russians. Look, they've become involved in the Syrian civil war, and that has caused tremendous damage to their standing in this region, because they're seen as being taken sides with the Assad regime. And it's very, you have to think twice before you actually take sides in this region. I actually think what China is doing right now is very wise to help the development. We need development in Israel. Of course, we need development in Palestine. We need development in many parts of this region. But once you start becoming involved, it will also impact your relationship with the EU, because they also have influence here. It will also influence Chinese relationship with the United States as well, because the US has interest here.
Okay, Meir, for now, thank you very much indeed. We're going to take a short break, but we'll come back to you in just a couple of minutes to carry on this conversation. Welcome back. We're talking about the 4th China-Arab States Expo, which is kicking off in Beijing. Question to you, Kassem, now, if I may. What made you get involved with this expo?
The actual involvement was like by accident to start with. I've been with the expo for the last 4 sessions, and previous to that there was 2 forums that happened before that platform was called Expo to start with. So I participated in the first forum that happened in Ningxia, in the city of Inchuan, and at that time, things were not very clear where this is going, and it evolved as a real platform for China and Arab cooperation. And I consider it as a platform for people-to-people exchange, not only at the government level, people-to-people exchange, business-to-business exchange that's happening every 2 years.
Well, yes, exactly. Li Guofu, it's not just the trade, it's not just the investment. There's a symbolic significance to this, isn't there? The idea that people can come together, that they can show the world that they're united. It's very important for China.
I think it is not symbolic. It is actually, as a matter of fact, that we can see very clearly during the recent special, actually for a long time, and we get along quite well with the Arab the countries. As a previously session we have discussed that China has formally long-term held position to support the Palestinian causes. We strongly believe that the two-state solution would be benefit for the both sides, not only for the Palestinians but also the Israeli wants to maintain as a democratic and Jewish state. That has to solve within the two-state solutions, and we believe that any solutions for the Middle East should be based on just and fair. If one side impose its own solutions, can only get benefit from this kind of conflicts, there won't be any long stability in the region. I think this is one of the issues we share formally with our the Arab world and our countries.
See, Meir Javedanfar, as you were hearing there, it's almost impossible for China to get involved with the Middle East without discussing the politics of the region, isn't it?
There's a difference, Jeff, between discussing and getting involved. Absolutely, it's impossible to get to not to discuss it. But there's a world of there's a huge distance between discussing and getting involved. And of course, you're going to do business in this region. You're going to look, for example, look at the Iran deal issue. Trump, and I have to say mistakenly, walked out of the nuclear deal. And of course, China expressed its disappointment and its disapproval. And it's inevitable, of course, that we're going to hear that. And of course, there's such opinions will have to be expressed. But to become involved, I mean, look at the mess this region. You have the Syrian war. Do you want to become involved in that? Or what about the Americans supporting the Saudis? And that, on the other hand, how this is impacting them? Do you want to become involved in that? Or the many other issues in this we have in this region. Look, I strongly advise. One of the issues which we really need the help of our Chinese friends, it doesn't matter if you're Arab or you're Israeli or you're Persian, we need help with the environment here. There's a severe drought in this region. It's impacting Iraq. It's really impacting Iran. It's impacting, one of the reasons why we saw the Syrian civil war was in 2006 because of the drought. Many people left the countryside. So in 2011, when the disturbances broke out, those unemployed people who had left the countryside because of the drought joined the forces, and we are where we are. That's one of the reasons. I really think that these issues we really need involvement of China, much more than China becoming involved in the political squabbles of this region. And also, as I said, investment. We need infrastructure investment in this region. I think I think any majority of the people of the Middle East agree that this is something that we need much more. Yes, if Israel makes mistakes with settlements, and I think we do, to express your opinion. Of course, everybody makes mistakes. But to discuss issues, yes. To become involved, I would say keep that distance.
Kassem Tofailli, a mistake, do you think? Settlements in Israel?
I think it's not about mistakes here. We all know that this has its own roots. It's not about the practice of the policies here and there. There is a major issue with Israel as we said, the Chinese side is taking one position, which is two states solution, Okay, this is regarding, and of course the Arabs, with all their initiatives that they about the peace process and all of that, it's a different direction. It's not about mistakes in this case. I don't agree totally on this.
Okay, well, let's move on then to the issue with the loans. Now, China is talking about loaning $23 billion to the Middle East. Meir, what do you think, firstly, briefly if you will, what do you think that can practically achieve in the region?
I think that the loans, from my understanding, is most of it is infrastructure, helping in infrastructure and information technology, unless I'm mistaken. I think that's very good. I think that's very welcomed. But we have to wait and see, the countries that are taking those loans, whether they will pay them back, because if they don't, that's going to impact relationship with China.
Li Guofu, very good point. What happens if they can't afford to pay them back? What does China do then?
And it depends, we would say that, the Middle East countries, each country's condition are varied, very differently. And, these loans, may help in, we would say that, to building the infrastructures, maybe to help, in so build of, some joint, cooperation or joint, the projects. And as for whether those countries may in the future don't have the capabilities to pay back, and I think since everyone has agreed that all these kind of cooperation, all the projects has been and carried quite well, the main purpose is to build up these countries' abilities and to improve their lives and to maybe build their own capabilities and to develop their economy. With these, the aims or the goals has been achieved. And maybe I personally believe that in the future there will be no problems of whether return or payback of these loans, because the real purpose for China is not to get any, the economic or benefits. We may make a fortune with these adjournments. The purpose is how can we may work together, to improve the local people's life, to help, those Arab countries to strengthen the capabilities to be much stronger. People live a better life.
But China's not doing this out of the goodness of its heart. There has to be something in it for China, and that's not doing down China. That's saying any country in the world that gets involved in this sort of scale, that makes this sort of donation, has to get something back. What do you think, Li Guofu, that China will be getting back from this?
I think, as I said, it depends on different countries. For those in the Gulf states, for example, they may have some the energy and the oil, and we know those countries are China's largest the provider of our oil. They can no problem for those countries to to pay back for these loans. And as a matter of fact, there are not a large amount of the money as far as those countries are concerned. But for those poorer countries, for example, for example, Egypt, or for some other, relatively poor country, they may have, financial problems. And certainly, we would very much like, they may pay back, those loans. But most important for us is, I'm not going to say, this kind of is a sort of donations. But as I said earlier, that, the most important thing for China, we will help them as friends. It depends on maybe in the future. If these, the projects, this plan has been carried out, I don't believe there would be any problems in the future for those countries pay back.
Kassem, very briefly, if you will, do you see China as a friend?
Of course. And I want to emphasize on what my colleague is saying now, that it's not about defaulting on the loans. It's about China is investing in the future of this area. It is investing in the future of the people of this area. If you do as China did, industrial zone in Morocco or industrial zone in Oman, you are creating jobs, you are creating new opportunities for those people. And I'm sure with the development, you know, those issues of repaying the loans and all of that, this would be overcome, because again, it's a matter of you are sharing your development with this area.
Okay, Kassem Tofailli, the Deputy Secretary General of the China-Arab States Expo, Li Guofu, a Senior Research Fellow at the China Institute of International Studies, and Meir Javedanfar, a Middle East analyst, joining us there from Israel. Thank you, gentlemen, very much indeed. Well, that's it from this edition of The Point. As always, don't forget you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter using the handle The Point with LX. Download the CGTN app to watch our show on your mobile devices, or you can go to YouTube. We're there as well. Have a look for CGTN The Point. Plenty of Lucien for you. So thanks for watching. You've got The Point. Bye-bye.